You're live. Don't know why you're live. Oh. Why is that going about? Shit, I'm live. I don't know. What's it all about? In lockdown. Shadowy figure. Very dramatic. I suppose what inspired this was I was watching a video. Dirk Gently, private detective. And I've never seen so much rubbish in all my life. Quite astonishing. And the Masons. The kind of stuff. The kind of stuff. I suppose it's what it says on the title, doesn't it? 1 to 9. You know, it's so fucking simple. Excuse the language, but I get a bit tired of this. Try to communicate this stuff. Let's adjust this light some way. Is that better? Yeah, it's a bit better. Says 1 to 9. It's so simple. That's what frustrates me. Nobody seems to get it. I've been in the house all day. I don't know where the time goes, but there you go. It just goes. I suppose that's part of recovery. In the old days, I would be looking at my watch every 5 minutes or whatever, and time would be dragging by. Now, just by a pain, really. So, how can it be so difficult to get this message across when it's so simple? Straightforward, clear-cut, precise instructions. You know, like a little kiddie's toy. You follow the clear-cut, precise instructions, so that at the end of it, you'll have a little kiddie's toy that works and whatever it is. Yeah, I remember I thought that one up years ago. You get two children, they get a table, and you split the table with a board so they can't see each other. You give one kid, you give the two of them a model, an Airfix model, to make an aeroplane. And you tell one to follow the instructions, and you tell one to study the instructions. So there they are. And after a wee while, the kid who's studying the instructions starts to get a bit bored. Nothing's happening. So they take a sneaky peek around the corner, and there's this wee guy who's following the instructions. He's got the makings of an aeroplane that's taking shape. There's something wrong here, isn't there? And that's where it is in A. They've got a bunch of nutters down this way. They're in Texas as well. They've got a group there, the Big Book Study Group. And there's big study groups here. And why would you need to study it? All you do is, why would you need to study clear-cut, precise instructions? You know, they're simple. You don't need to study them. They're that simple. You don't need to study them. Get a fucking grip. And I get upset because I've taken enough people through this program to have taken through people who have been subjected to this misery of you have to study the program first, which happened to me. And it just flattened me when I heard that. And I tried it. And I failed. When I tried, phoned up people, asked them about it, and whatever else. But eventually this man decided, right, okay, let me come. This was after months and months of dragging me along, stringing me out, whatever it was. And I was just, well, why would you put up with that, John? Why would they? I put up with it because I was naive. I had the mind of a child. And normally aspirated people, if there is such a thing, they wouldn't understand. They wouldn't understand. But I managed to scramble my way through this program, following the instructions in the book, to be fair. Eventually, once I got down to the book, follow the instructions. I was now the guy on the other side of the table who was following the instructions and not studying them. But things started to happen. Oh, wow. I wonder if there's anybody out there with the same experience. I know there's God knows how many, countless people in the AA rooms who don't know how to follow the path. Some of them don't even know about a path. Some of them don't even know about a book. Or more to the point, just how profound the book is and how important the book is. They think it's just a book, as I did, for over a year. Truly shocking business. And the interesting thing is, I wasn't your average alkie. I'd done hundreds of meetings in that first year. Hundreds of meetings. And yet I'd never heard some of this stuff. Never heard any of it at all. I was only listening to Joe and Charlie after about 9 months, 10 months, that I discovered what the big book actually was. I didn't know what it was. I just thought it was a book they read out of, I remember these people are talking about a book. It was Big Joe. I was listening to these tapes. My second sponsor, who, he was all right, he's impressive enough guy. He owned a big detached house. He owned a BMW. And he had a wee Thai wife. And he did things I kind of wanted, especially the house and the BMW. But just didn't know. He lent me the tapes, and that's when I discovered what Joe and Charlie were talking about. He lent me the tapes. And it's only when they were talking about the woman who they were discussing sexual conduct in step 4 and 5. Step 4. And he mixed that up with the message on page 96. The message on page 69, he mixed it up with the message on page 96, which was give freely of what you've got. And Big Joe burst out laughing. And I burst out laughing because I got a joke. Then I realised they were talking about a book. They were talking about this. I'm listening to these tapes. I'm not got a clue. I'm just listening. I'm just being a good boy, doing as I was told. Truly shocking. And I am certainly not unique. I'm certainly not unique because I've had the privilege of taking people through this program, hundreds and near 500 and 400, I would write. It's quite remarkable how it all worked out. I won't get into any details, but it was remarkable. And it puts me in a position now, 27 years later. 27 years. I don't look that old, do I? Yeah. Beginning to feel it. That's not good. Anyway. So this is my journey of discovery. Joe and Charlie cracked a joke, and I discovered that they're talking about the big book. And of course, the fundamental problem there is, in this country, you go to a step meeting, now it comes at 12 and 12. Nobody told me that it wasn't the programme, so I assumed it was the programme. And it tells you right at the beginning in the introduction to the book exactly what it is. An interpretive commentary on the 12 steps by a co-founder. That was just his opinion, his interpretation. I never saw any of that. And horrendous. And as God would have it, I was to bump into this man. And this man, unbeknownst to me, was the man described on page 18. Because nobody had ever pointed out the man on page 18 to me. And if they did, they didn't do it often enough because it's repetition, 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 you know. You keep hearing it, and then eventually you start to get it. So, in essence, no, I'd never heard it. And I'd done hundreds of meetings. So if I didn't hear it, what chance did anybody else have? Truly, truly, and utterly shocking when you consider we suffer one of the ugliest illnesses on the planet. Have you ever seen someone dying of this illness? You wouldn't want to. You wouldn't want to. Trust me. Getting depressing thing about it. Yeah, you would get depressed thinking about it. What happens to the people who don't make it? Well, it's obvious, isn't it? There's no defence. So they relapse and resume, as they say. So, as it says in the box, 1 to 9. That's what it's all about initially. 12 steps, 12 statements of fact, based on the experience of the people who wrote the book. Question, who were they? A bunch of ex-drunks who were screwed up at a funeral. They'd have argued where to put a full stop. And yet, within a year, 11 months or so, they had created this masterpiece. Wow. One person described it as a miracle of the 20th century. I describe it as a miracle of very many centuries, going back to the time of Christ. Muhammad and all these people paled into insignificance with this book, the Quran. And this big book's up there with the Bible. It's up there with the Bible. Truly remarkable. An inspired book. Inspired book. So, there's a bunch of questions in there. Every step begs a question. And every question is answered in the first 103 pages of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's a fact. Because you only have to look at the book as you're listening to me, and you will see it. That's right. That's what he's saying. Cool, blimey. Right on the money. So, let's deal with step 1. Admitted we were powerless over alcohol. Who did? They did. The people who wrote the book. How did they do that? Well, the first 3 chapters cover that. Chapters 1, 2, and 3. In my experience, your average alkie doesn't need those first 3 chapters. Just need to be asked the questions which sum up those 3 chapters at the beginning of chapter 4, which basically says, if you want to stop drinking and you can't, and when you start you can't control the amount you drink, well, you might have to admit that you've got a problem. Don't need to accept it, because we're not giving you a solution, but at least admit it. And I did, no problem. Yeah, no problem. Absolutely no problem. So that's 2 questions. When you want to stop, can you? No. When you start, can you control the amount you drink? No. Right. So your powerless means you need a power. The people in the book found a power. Do you want to follow their path? Well, yeah, it sounds okay, but how long is it going to take? Typical alky. He wants to know how long it's going to take. Well, to take steps 4 to 9 will take you 2 days, according to the book. All right, these clear-cut, precise instructions. That's right. First part of which is, so you turn your life, you don't hand it over, you turn it over, you get it turned back once you've completed step 9. Hey, that's cool. So, step 4. Launch on the course of vigorous action. That's pretty powerful stuff. That's why it only takes 2 days. You launch out in the course of vigorous action because they know they can't keep your attention that long. The attention span of the alcoholic is not very big. So they know who they're dealing with. Launch out in the course of vigorous action. Sure. First step, the first part of which is a moral inventory. Looking for the truth. Okay, I didn't know what moral meant. But there you go. I was looking for the truth. So we set out to do that. And it gives you the instructions in chapter 5. 3 columns. I resent, the cause, effects. You lay it out on A4 paper. 2-inch column down the left-hand side, 3-inch column down the right-hand side, and the column down the middle. The top left-hand, I resent, and the centre column, at the top, the cause, and at the top of the third column, affects. Why? It's in the book. Read it. What affects my sexual, my relationships with my wife, and it's all pretty straightforward. The best bit of advice I got regarding that was to do each column one at a time. Don't do them across the way. Do each column one at a time. Simple reason being, you get about 7 names on one A4 page. And if you start doing them across the way, you start with my mother. By the time you get down to my aunt, you'll be thinking, that'll change something with my mother. And so you're always going back editing, and you end up getting fed up with it, scrunching it up, shotting it out of the road, and having a walk down the pub. Don't have much tolerance either. So, do each column one at a time. Fine. Right. You then also do, you look at the principles in life, the rules in life that you don't like. You give them the same treatment, same column thing, blah, blah, blah. And what's the other? There's another one. Rules in life, principles in life. And I always forget that one. I don't know what it is. If I remember one, I forget the other. Kind of strange. Probably something to do with my age. So I resent. Keep getting distracted. I resent people, principles, and institutions. There's quite a few of them in my life. Brought up in poverty and abuse and all that stuff. There's a lot of that in my life. So there you go. Bang crash wallop. When you're writing down the names, as soon as you start having to think about a name, then you're finished. That's it. As soon as you have to start thinking about it, just do the major ones, get them down. And that's cool. Take a deep breath, John. Where were you? Right, writing down the columns. Doing the same with principles and institutions. You don't have to discipline yourself as much with those. So having done that, you identify. You start to learn who reacted to you and who acted to you. And that's very important. It's hugely important. Who acted and who reacted. And for the first time, I started to see how as they really were. And that's hugely important and hugely inspiring. So, my God, so that wasn't me? No, that was. And I shouldn't have done, no. And it's just astonishing how it worked for me and for many others. Many others. I know this works because I've seen it in other people, not just me. Not just me. And yeah, and you look at your sexual conduct, which was pretty boring, but quite hurtful towards my ex-wife. And yeah, just totally irresponsible, just childish. No, shouldn't have been married. Anybody who married me was a nutter. Anybody who was a girlfriend of mine was a nutter. And I know that clearly now because I see myself clearly instead of 4 and 5. And I was a nutter. To be fair, albeit a child in a man's body. A child in a man's body can do a lot of damage. Oh dear. Get tired even thinking about it. So there you are. You have all that. The sexual conduct. And I then have a look at my fear, what I'm fearful of, as opposed to frightened. Frightened, there's, different people are frightened from different things, and probably for a very good reason. But to be fearful of something, that's different. That's kind of set in place as a child. And you start to recognise that. Yeah, right, okay, so don't need, no. So that's not, no. So that's okay. Yeah, that's okay, good. And as I said, right, I differentiate, I discern when I work out who I've harmed. And hugely important, hugely important. At that point, having discussed it with a man, I return home. Page 75, I think it is. Yeah, page 75. Returning home. All right, so I've been somewhere, yes. You've been to the man's house. Okay, fine. So I took down the book and I looked through the first 5 principles, steps. I didn't know what a principle was. I had to ask. Okay, fine. And we cut through the rubbish, all the rationalisation and justification. The man done that with me as I talked about these situations. So there you go. I've got a list of people I've harmed as well as a list of people I resent. So step 6, page 76. It's a good page, page 76. Good page. Page 76. So, being there are some things which are a bit difficult to work out at that time as regarding resenting people and whatever else, but, you're prepared to make amends to most of these people because you see your fault and you say, right, that's fine. I don't see any problem with that. And that's cool. And if there are things that you hang on to, and there are kind of things, some of these crazy sponsors out there have got people making amends to people who don't deserve to be made amends to. Telling people to go and make amends to people who abused them. Yeah. Shocking. Don't get me started on these sponsors. Don't get me started. Don't get yourself started, John. Don't get yourself. So, if there are any I'm stuck on, I'll get step 7 prayer. I'll say that on a daily basis until I'm not stuck. That's fair enough. Okay, fine. So whatever form you want it to take. They give you an example, but it's up to yourself. Then we go on to steps 8 and 9. Faith without works is dead. All right. Okay. We had a list of resentments. Is that what it says? We had a list of resentments. A list of people we had harmed. Yeah. I became willing to make amends to them. We did it when we took step 8. When we did it in step 4. Oh, I've got my list from step 4. Yeah. It tells you. It says it in the book. Yeah. All right, okay, fine. So no argument. No debate. Not a matter of opinion. This is it. You're doing it the way that you've accepted their invitation. So they're instructing you on what they've done. Well, fine. Okay. Pretty sensible and reasonable. In step 9, I have to go out to help, to make amends to these people whenever possible, with the help of the man and the guidance of the man. The man on page 18, without whom little or nothing can be achieved. The ex-problem drinker. Oh yeah. Who's found this solution. Spiritual experience. Yeah. Who's in possession of the facts about himself. Oh yeah. How did he do that? He took the steps. Oh, right, okay. Right. So he knows what he's talking. Yeah, he knows what he's talking about. So there you go. You're now out there. You're making amends, and you continue to take inventory. Step 10. And when we're wrong, promptly admit it. Step 10 is pretty cool. The man said to me, the best way to take that inventory is to do it, basically lay it out the same as your step 4 inventory. All right, okay. And at the end of it, they lay out a gratitude list, things that you're grateful for, which is really neat. Some people will debate, what do you do before you go to bed at night, or do you do it when you go up in the morning? My interpretation of it, my view is that what better way to put your head in the pillow with a gratitude than with a gratitude list? Yeah, right. Okay. That sounds pretty decent, doesn't it? Put your head on the bed with your gratitude list. Yeah, I like that. There you go. To all intents and purposes, you have recovered, as long as you maintain your spiritual condition. Here's another question. How did they do that? They practiced steps 10 and 11. Step 10, pretty straightforward. Moral inventory becomes a personal inventory. But good advice, do it the same way as your step 4. You won't go far wrong. Okay, fine. Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Okay. Prayer and meditation. Prayer, whatever you think, whatever you prefer, a religious thing or whatever, is entirely up to yourself. Meditation, that's a different one. I thought I'd have to bounce about in mattresses and chant and all that stuff, meditation. To meditate, to think deeply. Okay. There's nobody better on this planet than alcoholics at thinking deeply. The only problem is it's all negative stuff. Now we can think deeply on positive stuff. Wow. Wow. What a difference. What a turnaround. And you will recover. It will become intuitive. You will intuitively know how to handle things that used to baffle you. Intuitive, just like riding a bike, driving a car. Bum, bum, bum. Fantastic. That's how simple it is. And yeah. Step 12. How does step 12 go again? Get old. Just get old. Step 12, just read it, but it's there. On a daily basis, and try to carry this message to the still suffering alcoholic. That was a wee bit clumsy, but you'll get the drift. And if you've got your book, you'll find everything I'm saying reflected in the book. And to reassure you. And if you need any guidance or any advice, or if you want to have a debate as opposed to an argument, then all you have to do is get in touch with me on steps 1 to 9. AA doesn't work. The program does. What I've laid out to you is what's in the book. You follow the clear-cut, precise instructions of a simple program, and you will get what they got. You will recover. It takes 2 days to do steps 4 to 9. Simple as that. As they say, don't knock it till you've tried it. Most people who criticise me will say, have you actually ever done it? No. Well, how can you criticise something you haven't done? And everything that's in the book is very alcoholic, isn't it? You haven't done it. It's in the book, but you're still knocking it. What is your problem? I'm an alcoholic. You should be in the rooms. See, this is where Alcoholics Anonymous lets everybody down. They come to the meeting and you ask them the simple questions. When you want to stop, can you? And when you start, can you control the amount you drink? If the answer is no to those questions, then you need help. And here it's here. If you can stop whenever you want to stop, then you don't need these rooms. Away you go. Come back when you're ready. Hopefully you'll never be ready. But generally, anybody who's got a good enough reason to come to an AA meeting for the first time, they've got a problem. And this program won't do them any harm. And see, the lovely thing about this program is that God, higher power, whatever, he looked down and he thought, this lot of screwing this old business up, we're just getting into the Second World War. Not long out of one, a First World War, we're now getting into the Second World War. You couldn't make it up, could you? You really could not make it up. And God kind of thought, these people need something. They need an example. So he picked alkies, who were the most disgusting and most selfish and most just horrible people, alcoholics. Horrible people. Dreadfully, dreadfully selfish, in a criminal sense. And God decided, I know what I'll do. I'll get these alkies sorted out. I'll get them a program. And then when the rest of them see the alkies getting sorted out, they'll hop on board as well. Hey, there you go. Maybe that's the way God planned it. I wouldn't be surprised. Sounds very sensible, very logical. So, hey, if you hear what I'm saying, that's cool. If you don't, do us all a favour and just ignore me. Have a good life. Ta-ta. And I shall edit myself out of this.